Welcome to Property Avenue WA. Would you believe it is episode 13? And that seems to have gone very, very quickly, and a lot's been happening. We've decided, if you're seeing the two of us on screen at the moment, there's a good reason for that. We've decided to tweak a little bit. And normally this young man on my right, one Oscar De Souza, would be a guest. And of course, you may recall, some of you who saw us a week or two ago, where Oscar decided he was going to interview me. We've since had a chat about things, said, why don't we get together? Because one of the things that is really important that we've both been noticed is there are topics of the week. There are things in the papers, there's things on TV, there's a range of things, and obviously the fields that Oscar and I are in, we pick up on different topics and gives us the opportunity to talk about it. But more importantly, we want you to be more involved. We want you to ask us questions, and we want you to see if we can discover some of those answers, and we hope we can do that. That's the purpose of Property Avenue WA. So, Oscar, mate, welcome.
TV, thanks always for having me. It seemed to be a little bit of a regular, but I just love talking all things real estate, and obviously real estate in WA, and to bounce it off, someone like yourself is it's a lot of fun. It's we live and breathe it day to day, and sometimes we just get caught up in the job. But it definitely is a passion as well. So if there's anything that for the people that do want to tune in, that find interesting, we've been doing it for a while, so we're happy to share the knowledge. And just similar to what you said, I'd encourage what you said, and that is from the word go, anyone that's got any questions or burning issues to do with real estate, and in particular in WA, start shooting some questions in, because we're not going to plan for anything. We're just going to let you know what we think and the reasons why we think it. We'll see where we land. But good to be part of it.
Yep, mate, and I'm looking forward to it. I must admit, when we both had a chat about it and decided let's go this way, I think it's we will still have our guests each week, and we will still have different people in different fields. But tonight we're sort of going to we're going to have a look at the situation about, okay, do we consider selling or buying? Which is the better option if you in this current climate? We're going to discuss negative equity. What is it? What's it about? Have you ever heard of it? Do you know what it is? What impact it'll have on you? One little interesting point that obviously I'm in that field is the baby boom. Where's that with regard to planning and housing here in WA? A bit of an idea of what's going on with the marketplace, which Oscar's got a lot of expertise in that. And then there's a little article that I don't think you'd be actually, I'm conscious that I'll be interested to know whether you're aware of it, but I read a very interesting little article I picked up in the small print in one of the papers during the week. So we've got some really good topics, and obviously, as Oscar said, we're looking forward to your questions. Mate, to get things rolling, and obviously in your field where you've got a background in real estate and valuations and auctioneering and property management, the part that I'm intrigued about, and the questions that I've been asked a fair bit over the last week or two, selling or buying, what's the option in this current market? And there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of things about COVID, and of course what's happening in the eastern states. What's your thoughts?
Matt, it's everyone always asks, so what's the market doing? What do we do? Is it bias? Is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? And there's always, in my mind, there's always two very distinct parts to that, because one is, well, what's the market doing? And just in a nutshell, what's the market doing? In WA, we started the year off really, really well. Obviously, we fell off a cliff during COVID so far as the volume of sales, but we've come back stronger since April, now May, June and July. The volumes of sales is absolutely phenomenal, and breaking records that we haven't seen in volume over the last 2 to 3 years. So that's got to tell us something in terms of the sentiment that's out there, and what people see as value in the marketplace. So is it a good time to buy and sell? If we just look at the demand and the supply side, and I do have a couple of stats here, Well, during the COVID period, we dropped down to 250, 260 sales through Perth for the week, where we were used to doing 500 to 600 sales a week. We're back up to 500, 600 sales. And in fact, when we peaked going back 4 to 5 weeks now, we were in excess of 1,000 sales for the week. So we haven't seen those numbers in a long, long time. So that's the demand and supply economics. When you look at the stock that's currently on the market, and this really looks at supply. Right now, there's about 5,660 homes for sale through Perth, through the Perth metropolitan area. And it wasn't that long ago that number was well in excess of 10,000.
Really?
Total,
that many?
Yeah, it absolutely. It's been such
That's
a
the Perth metro area.
Perth metro area. So right now, It used to be well in excess of 10,000. I think at one point in time, in the total properties that were available within approximately 2 years ago, it was 14,500 to 15,000 of available properties. Now that includes houses, it includes units, and it also includes land. Right now, right this minute, there's just over 10,300 available properties, which includes land, units, and houses. And of that, about 5,660 of them are houses. 12 months ago, though, we had 14,812 properties available for sale. So if you're just looking at the supply side, that 14,800 has dropped down to almost 10,000 in the space of 12 months. And just when you look at that sheer supply, and it's the old story, when there isn't that much stuff around, that's when there's the most demand for it, and it becomes a scarcity, and people want it more and more. All the real estate agents that I'm talking to at the moment, the number of people that are coming through the home opens, the number of offers that are coming in for any one property, and the number of days on market for these sales, all those figures, the number of people through the home opens and the offers, those figures are increasing. And in terms of the days on market, 12 months ago, average days on market were between 60 and 65 days. So basically a couple of months to get an accepted offer on a property, but that's now down to 45 as well. So all those signs are suggesting that there's a lot of market activity out there. There's lots of buyers. Price growth, too early to say, but with these sorts of supply conditions and a much greater level of demand, there's no question that we're going to be seeing a price rise. How much and exactly when, we're definitely going to see something by the end of this year. There's no question about that. Just the sheer...
Can I interrupt you for a sec? Do you think even with what's going on in the eastern states, so with the dramas that are occurring there, obviously we're probably, although interestingly enough, I know a few weeks back we were talking, and I was speaking to Henry Van Thiel. I've certainly had inquiries from our office as a settlement agent, interest from the eastern states. Do you think that will make a difference with what's going on here in WA, or does it give us a plus?
No, I think over the last 2 or 3 years, TB, we've actually shown that WA as a real estate market is a bit isolated from what happens over in Victoria and in New South Wales. We saw that when our market did nothing for 3 to 4 years, and New South Wales and Melbourne continued to go up. And then all of a sudden, about 18 months ago, they stopped dead and actually fell off a cliff for a short time. But within the space of 9 or 12 months, somehow they started to recover again, and WA was doing nothing. We didn't go up or down. So a lot of the media stuff that we do see here in WA, that's fueled by and it comes from what's going on in the eastern states market in Victoria and in New South Wales, and they kind of forget that WA, does exist. So when we do see that there's price drops and 30% volume down and all these statistics, often those figures coming out of the eastern states are not actually a fair reflection of what's going on here in WA. So WA is a really, really strong market at the moment, not because of pumping it up unnecessarily. We're basing this on the history and what we're looking at just over the last few months, and those sorts of statistics that I mentioned to you. The other thing, just in terms of the current market, if you're looking at, I mean, there's the owner-occupier market, but we're also looking at investors. It's a very good investors market at the moment because it wasn't that long ago that we had more than 10,000 rentals available in Perth, and that was probably only about 18 months ago. Right now, it's just under 4,000 available rental properties through Perth.
Right.
And 12 months ago, it was 7,300 available properties in Perth, and we're leasing 1,000 properties a week in Perth. So if you're an investor, if you're not even looking at moving house, but you're looking to invest, the investment market looks very good as well because there's high demand for rental properties and interest rates are ridiculously low. So that makes for a good investment. And then if you get some capital growth out of that as well, then, you know, it sounds like you're onto a good thing. But what I said at the start in terms of is it a good time to buy or sell, obviously I've just spoken all about the market and there's the market conditions. But the other big side of the coin, TV, is, well, you've got to look at your own personal situation and your own life as well. And what is it that you're actually looking to achieve? Because you can't just make decisions on whether you should buy or sell based on what's happening in the market. You've got to look at, well, what's your end goal? I mean, if you're looking to upgrade your property, now might be a good time to sell because there's lots of demand. But if you need to sell something in order that you can buy your next property, you're still going to be going into that competitive environment as well. So if you sell in a downward market and you need to buy, well, you're going to be buying in a downward or a falling market. But similarly, if the market is starting to go up, that's going to be good for you as a seller, but you're also going to be in some competition when it comes to buy as well. So it's not as simple as real estate's always been a long-term investment. So you can't just decide, yep, now's a good time, because that might actually not fit with your greater goals of life and where your family's at.
Yep. One thing that we like those statistics. One thing that we probably try and do some homework for next week is just see how the regions are going as well, because obviously we've got people that we're associated with in different regions, and obviously my case having an office at Geraldton, the Midwest region, but certainly I've got a bit of contact and certainly a number of clients up in the Northwest. Obviously, it'd be interesting to see how Albany and that area is going. And, of course, can't forget Kalgoorlie and Bunbury, as we know, Bunbury, Busselton and all that southwest area. It'd be intriguing to see how they're all comparing as well with, and perhaps because of the close proximity to the city, would the southwest run sort of along par with what's happening with the city, the metro area? Would that be?
No, it is, but then I also am in touch with people in the southwest, but then also north, being the northwest, but then also the Midwest, and all of them, their numbers aren't exactly the same as ours so far as percentages are concerned, but all of them are reporting a massive fall in the available properties, whether it be the rental market or whether it be the sales market as well.
Yep.
So whilst the numbers might be a bit different, the trends are exactly the same. Right now, there is massive activity in all markets. There's less supply, but there's lots of people after those properties. So the other thing to keep in mind as well, TV, the land market that we've seen in Perth, certainly in the southwest, and to a lesser extent, and a far lesser extent, the Midwest. The land market has absolutely gone gangbusters just over the last 2 months since the introduction of both the federal and the state building grants as well. That really has achieved its purpose in terms of stimulating that side of the market, and therefore the building activity for our construction sector. So it's absolutely served its purpose so far, and the land sales in Perth, but particularly in the southwest, have literally been off the Richter. It's been quite phenomenal, where we've seen subdivisions down there sell out. The 6 months prior to COVID, they'd be battling to sell, even a handful.
Yeah.
But as soon as the introduction of these grants have happened, within the space of the week, we've had stages of land subdivisions sell out. It's been quite remarkable.
Well, and from my observation, it hasn't slowed down. There was that mad panic and people camping outside real estate offices, when it was first announced. But It doesn't appear to slow down. And you look at all the reports around the place, it's still going that a million miles an hour. So it'd be interesting to see, as much as all these builders want to sort of have things happening, you would want to be, I suppose the concern is keeping up and being able to service the demand. That will be the next. That'll be the next challenge. So, no, interesting times, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
The part with that, as far as that is concerned, is there was I read or saw there's some commentary. I think I read in one of the real estate sections, and there might have also been something on TV. But there was a reference about the reduction in values of property, and they referred to Melbourne and Sydney, but where Perth was also, or WA was on a par, or Perth, I think more particularly, and there was a reduction of, I think it was around about 1.1%. But with what you're saying is that's obviously a bit of a fall off from the COVID situation, perhaps, and businesses being closed down and not operating and people not working. But you would expect, based on what you're saying, that will perhaps turn around quite significantly, have got the ability to turn around quite significantly over coming months.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind, TB. Absolutely. Like it can't go, so far as the WA market is concerned, there is no backwards happening on the back of what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 months. The data that you're talking about would have been calculated, I'm thinking, over the first quarter of the year, and maybe that even spread into April as well. But the next set of quarterly figures that we see come out is going to show a massive spike in the volume of transactions. There's no question. And because there's that massive spike in volume, but now we're seeing a short supply, but there's still high demand, the next quarter after that will have to show some positive signs of growth. So I'm not saying that we're boom territory, and I'm not saying that we're 10% growth or anything crazy like that. But it's going to be some of the most positive growth that our local market has seen anytime in the last 3 years.
Just while for those that may have joined us or wondering who these two little grey-haired men are that are talking about property, it's property. Pardon,
mate? I've got a few black ones there.
Silver. For those that have joined us or wondering what's going on, it's all about property in WA. You're welcome to ask questions. Surprisingly, there haven't been any questions, because I would have thought, with what's going on in the marketplace, if you're a first home buyer, if you're someone that's entertaining what you can or can't do. We've had a number of people that have inquired about selling their property to their children, or their parents buying off the kids, different scenarios like that. So if you've got some questions and want to know anything, we encourage you to get onto our Facebook page, and you can ask those questions, and they will come up on our screen, and we will respond accordingly. But mate, we're just talking about properties and talking about where the market's going. One other interesting part with regard to that, and I've certainly seen some scenarios when in the settlement side of things, negative equity. A lot of people are not necessarily aware what that's about, but that's an issue that I feel could have an impact, particularly down the track, with regard to property and what's going on. We have this, yes, it's exciting times to be able to build your own home and things of that nature, but it becomes more property on the market. Then what happens with values, and then what happens depending on how much people are borrowing, and then all of a sudden a change in valuation that can have an impact when it gets to negative equity. Yeah,
it's a bit of an ugly, or rather painful topic, TV, because you don't go into buying your own home to lose money, I guess, and it takes a long time to save up deposit, stamp duty, and all that sort of stuff to finally get your own home. And then out of your control, for some reason, the market value goes backwards, and you get to a point where the property is worth less than what it is that you owe on it, just because the market went that way. And then suddenly you've got a greater debt than what you could sell the property for, let alone agents' fees and all that other, settlement agent fees and all your broker costs.
Settlement agent fees, nothing, mate. Settlement agent fees are not even, that's a spit in the ocean, they are.
Well, they are maybe a Champion Bay settlements, mate, but I'm sure They probably the old scale, whatever that is. But yeah, so the negative equity thing, it's a very, very real thing. And you know, I've got my own personal experience with negative equity myself. Right now, I've actually got 2 properties which I've got negative equity in, and it's just one of those things that the market has gone backwards. I owe more than what the properties are worth, and myself, I have to sit there and think, okay, well, right now I can just service the debt, or you know, do my best to service the debt. But at some point in time, I don't want that situation to be there anymore. And my 2 options are either I find a way to reduce the debt so that it gets closer to, or then falls below what the value of the property is, so I don't have a negative equity situation anymore, or I sit and wait for the market to recover, and in which time then eventually my property is going to be worth more than I owe, and I'm out of that negative equity situation again. But how long is that going to take? You know, I have to. And honestly, it's something that's on my mind. It's a decision which I need to make sooner rather than later, because I've got to look at my properties. What's the difference in value? What sort of a growth rate do I need to achieve in order that they're going to be worth more than the debt? And how long do I think that's going to take? And then, well, if it's going to take 2 years, 3 years, whatever, in order to get to that point, how much is it actually going to cost me to maintain that debt? On the back of hoping that the market recovers to the spot that I need it to. So there's a few ifs in there, but it affects many other people other than me as well.
Well, I was going to say to you about that. Sorry to interrupt you, but you know, you're talking about that in that scenario. The other thing that with negative equity, which we've seen many an occasion, and particularly in the market we've been experiencing over the last 3 or 4 years, is marriage splits and partnership splits, where all of a sudden it's a no-brainer. And then, of course, one decides to pay out the other. However, there's a negative. The debt that, let's say, TV has a split, the situation being is he decides to pay out his partner. However, the equity in that property is a negative. It's actually the debt more than what the value is. So then there's a problem, because marriage split is going through, they've got to disperse assets. And then people say to me, oh, yeah, but we're not married anymore, so it's not my problem. Sorry, while that loan is in joint names, very much it's still your problem, whether you've remarried or gone on in a different direction or not, while that still exists. And, of course, that is a problem. You know, there is that do we sell? Or we've had a couple of scenarios where they've been young enough and the parents have had the resources to assist him or her to reduce the debt to allow him to go and borrow.
Yeah.
And she's going, but what about my share? There is no share.
Yeah.
There is no share. You know, you could share half the surplus debt, but that's unlikely. So therefore, that's it. So there's some very sad scenarios with negative equity, particularly in the marketplace, like we've been experiencing over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, no, mate. And just, you know, even in my property valuation days, you know, often a valuer will get called in to be an independent person to assess the market value of a property where there needs to be a marriage split and some sort of a settlement. And typically, obviously, the person who's going to buy it out, they want the value to be as low as possible. The person who's going to get paid out wants their share to be worth as much as possible. But as there's only one value, and that's what the valuer's role is for that. Just going back to with this negative equity thing, it's a very, very real problem, and this is just a very quick scenario or a hypothetical scenario, but it's a real life example. 2 years ago, if I went and built a house out in any of the outer suburbs, and I'm just going to pick Baldivis, I'll just pick Baldivis. If I bought a land 2 years ago and I built a house and that was all done and finished within, say, a 9-month period, and let's just say the whole thing cost me 500 grand, land plus the house and everything cost me 500 grand. But over the 2 years, let's just say that Baldivis, as an example, went down in value, and let's just say it went down 10% in value. I've spent 500,000. Let's just say I owe around that as well, but suddenly it's gone down 10% in value. So now it's worth around about 450,000, let's say. Suddenly I've got a negative equity thing. Let's just assume I didn't put any money into it. So I've suddenly got a negative equity thing. The governments, federal and state, have been awesome in terms of trying to stimulate the market, and they've provided grants of 40, 50, sometimes as much as 60,000 to try and stimulate the economy, to try and save our construction sector as well. So 2 years down the track, my mate around the corner decides to come along and buy a block of land in Baldivis, which the land is going to be a little bit cheaper now because the market fell in that 2 years. Then they're getting a 40 or 50 grand kicker in total from the government, and their cost to put what I put there 2 years ago, it cost me 500. Their cost to put it there is probably going to be 380 to 400,000. The exact same thing that cost me 500. So 2 years, what cost me 500 to put it there, and I put my life and my heart and soul into that. 2 years later, it might only be worth 380 to 400 because that's how much we can replace it for. Why would someone come and pay me 500,000 for my place when they can do it themselves under the current structure for 380 or 400 grand? So, and then suddenly I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I haven't just lost my 10%. I've kind of lost my, I've lost 100 grand. That is not as hypothetical as the word suggests. It's a very, very real scenario. It's happening in lots of suburbs around Perth, the outer suburbs, I guess. And it's on one hand, it's fantastic that the government is stimulating the economy and all that. And I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that they shouldn't be doing that. But there is the flip side, and it can be creating and it will create some problems for people that have established their own houses there in those subdivisions, say in the last couple of years. If somehow something, if the economy, if we go into a recession, or we're basically in recession and we've got that for a couple of years, and that negatively impacts on property prices again, not only will the people that have just built, will they start, going backwards in terms of value, but the person that built 2 years before has got an even bigger problem. So, you just got to roll with the punches. There's no right or wrong with it. But it's just some of the challenges that everyone's going to have to face, I guess.
Yeah. I just got one of our regulars, Dean Stonehouse, who was a mate of mine from our bank days. He just made mention about negative equity, which is pretty much along the lines of what we've been talking about. Can get messy when parental guarantee loans are involved and there is a need to sell. The parents can end up carrying the loss. And that's another point. We talk about marriage splits and things of that nature, but as Dino points out, and he's still involved in finance, that's exactly, another scenario that can be quite, can be hard for everybody.
And Dean, I mean, I've heard your name before, mate, so I haven't met you, but TV's mentioned you a couple of times. I'd love to hear if you can pop a comment in there as well. Just an extension of parents having to carry the debt. Well, what about if the parents are retired and they don't have an income to be able to carry the debt? They've got the equity to support it, but if they suddenly get lumped with this debt, well, how are they supposed to service the debt or the shortfall if they never had the income in the first place to support it? So does that mean that they get forced into a position where they have to sell some assets just to eliminate the debt because they don't have the cash flow to service it? So it can be hairy.
Yeah, look, and we're not trying to put a damper on the world and suggest, but these are things. This is the purpose of Property Avenue WA. This is why we're doing what we're doing, and hence why from here on, OD and I are going to do it as a joint effort. So it allows us to have a bit of a chat, have a bit of a discussion. As I said, we'll definitely plan to get guests on board. We'll continue that. We specialise in different fields. I'm really, really keen to. There's a couple of people that I'm keen to get. Certainly one associated with insurance. I've had Justin Collins has put his hand up and said he'd have a chat, not just about insurance, but also about how to protect your property so that you don't have to worry too much about insurance. But so there's some really interesting, and we as we keep on saying, if you've got any thoughts or any topics that you'd like us to get a guest or something you'd like us specifically to talk about, then by all means do so, because this is a weekly event every Wednesday, 7:45. This is what we're on about. So keep doing it, mate. Another thing that we refer to the marketplace, and we talk about negative equity, but on a more, I suppose, more in my little age bracket is the baby boom. And I read a little article about that situation at the moment, because I think that's a really intriguing part of, you talk about the marketplace and how things are moving so rapidly. And the baby boom is something that we've been talking about for some time. We knew this age group, the baby boomers, as we are called, are heading rapidly into that area. Are we downsizing? Are we looking for apartments? What are we looking for property wise? Because interestingly, I was out at the golf club. I'm associated with the Jordan Golf Club, and we sponsored the ladies event today. And I went out there to present the trophy, and we're having a chat. And of course, those that I was talking to, they're all similar to me, and some are a little bit older, some a fraction younger. But the fact being is, the comment was, no one in the world, we're going into aged care. We're looking for something else. They're still lucky enough to carry their health. But as you get older, let's not kid ourselves. We're looking for facilities. So that's another market that I think is going to creep up on us probably sooner than we realise. It's probably been forgotten with so many other things going on in the world.
Yeah. Well, Grandpa Simpson, since you brought it up, I have to ask you a question.
That's very unkind. It's very unkind. I'll wear my Andy Cap hat next time, I think.
And you do hear the oldies. They say, not on my watch. I'm not going into one of those places. That sort of stuff. But that's as far as I ever hear. So, given that you're edging towards 101. What does life look like if you're going to say one of those people and say, not on my watch? Well, what does it look like for you?
Exactly. Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yep. Well, I spoke to a friend who I hadn't spoken to for some time, and he has built a home, and he has a home to live in for now. A bit older than I, but not a great deal. But he's built a granny flat. He's built a granny flat already in his home to cater for the future. And he set it up accordingly to cater for whatever that may be. But it's certainly something that, like in my case, we've certainly considered. What are we doing? What does it look like? We've got to be realistic. And I've just had as you know, just come out of a recovery from a pretty serious accident that could have been a lot worse than what it was. And that's made me think big time. He's a fit, healthy bloke. In his 60s, but I'm fortunate as far as where my fitness and all those sort of things are. But suddenly, out of left field, that was taken away from me. And that could have been taken away from me more than what it was. But it makes you think about what's ahead of us and how quickly things can change. What does that look like, and what happens to the property market? And I see now there's apartments and things being built which they're like little estates, aren't they? What's the one I went out to? It's huge setup, and I've been out to see a few clients out there at Murdoch. Is it Arcadia? No, is it Arcadia? I'm just trying to think now. It's a huge complex out there behind the Murdoch University there.
Is it all single level or is it multi-level?
No, it's not multi-level. It's single residence, but it's a massive. So you basically buy your complex, but it's got all the facilities. Everything's there. And obviously that's, if you were, in my case, I suppose if I was going to go anywhere, that's probably what I'd do before I went to somewhere that was just aged care home as such.
Well, I've just seen, from time to time, a few of these types of facilities, and an auntie of mine, she was going back a couple of years now, but she was trying to work out what she's going to do. Is she going to do a lease for life? Is she going to go into a village? Is she just going to go and buy the land? No, lease the land and then have her own house put on it. So, I had a bit of a look and just to look at the different options that are out there. And mate, from what I've seen though, it's not bad at all actually. Like you're moving into, it's like you've moved into a new state, but it's just a condensed version, and you've got a great community, and you've got awesome facilities. Like it's not a bad way to to see out the years, but just in a in an environment where you don't have to, fight the freeway traffic all the time and do the crowds.
And I think the other thing too that I've seen is the where you've lost a long time partner and you're on your own, particularly for the females. There's that security, there's that social interaction, there's a range of activities that occur, etc., etc. So there's a lot going for it. There's probably a topic that we could probably look at as a future topic down the track, and maybe get someone on board that's associated with that area that we could get them to give us a bit more info. So we'll keep that one in mind. I just quickly, good old Dino's come back to us. He said some lenders, he actually gave you a compliment. He said it was a good question, OD.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously. Yeah, that's okay. Thanks, Dino. What about TV? Some lenders will access the parental guarantor up front. Some lenders will access the parental guarantor up front to see if they can meet their portion of the loan, whilst many lenders don't income assess the guarantor. And I'm aware of that. Yes, they may end up carrying a debt or need to sell assets to clear the shortfall. This is something parents need to consider. And this is someone who's got an extensive background in finance and bank manager and now finance broking. But this is something parents need to consider before entering into a loan arrangement, and better still, get upfront independent financial advice. So that's coming from someone who knows. So it's interesting. Thanks, Dino. We enjoy that, and always good to get, mate. One other little topic, because
before you go on, mate, I want to throw one more question back at Dino, and that is, if, as an example, whether it's my situation or not, but if I choose to sell a property that's got negative equity and therefore I get left with a 50 grand debt, say, what do the banks do if I don't have any other collateral or anything like for that? Are the banks receptive to just converting my remaining debt to a personal loan, and I just continue to pay that down? Is that something that they do, or do they have to have some security for the balance debt that's left there? So, Dino, if you can whack us back an answer, do you know the answer, TV?
Hey, you know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get in contact with him, and we're going to get him on as a guest.
Oh.
Not going to be someone who's going to send comments. We're going to get him on camera with the two of us, and we're going to fire a few questions and get him, and we'll ask those questions and get him on board. What do you reckon?
Well, I don't know. I was hoping that you might actually discuss that with me first, TV, before you put me on the spot, because I don't know how I feel about the whole thing. But look,
I keep forgetting you now. I keep forgetting you're now a co-host. I forgot. Sorry, I'm just so used to just running the show myself.
Well, this is bringing up a new topic, actually, TV, because your lovely wife Judy has been, we have a chat from time to time, and she's mentioned that you just go off on a tangent, or like not from time to time, all the time. You just make these decisions, and she finds out about it after. How long have you been married for?
Long.
Yeah, exactly. And she's still
very long.
She's stuck with you all this time when you just run off and make your own decisions. Now, I need to let you know up front that yes, I'm not really keen for that to be part of our relationship moving forward.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm with you.
We didn't have to do this, but you put me on the spot, and I didn't know how to react. So that's
okay.
That.
I get it. That's okay. One thing that another thing that I picked up on, and it's probably a topic that we will again discuss after I've consulted with you. But cybercrime and property. One thing that I really would sort of it's topical, and it's something that's becoming quite prevalent in the current climate. And it's perhaps we're all so everything's computerized, everything's the phone, our iPads, our laptops and everything else. Here we are. I'm now come up to Geraldton for this next couple of weeks, and you're in Perth, and here we are talking to each other like we're in the same room. But what's really, really intriguing, and what is something that we've really got to be conscious of, is cybercrime, and particularly with property, because it's just not uncommon where there's a whole range of things. In fact, when we do our courses, our annual courses, we've got a whole booklet that we did, a whole topic to our discussion over cybercrime. But one of those things that people need to be conscious of, and we all do it, we go to a coffee lounge, go to a cafe and have coffee and meet our friends, and we're buying a property or we're selling a property, and then suddenly Tony Viner, they get an email from Tony Viner, and they open that email in the coffee lounge, which is not necessarily a secure location. The Wi-Fi is not secure. And we've experienced it a couple of years ago now, where clients got an email from us telling them to deposit the monies into such and such an account. If you saw the email, you would not know any different. The only reason it was picked up on, I've got a response from Dean Stonehouse.
At the moment there, did you, mate?
Yeah, I did. I've just got a message from Dean Stonehouse. He'd be happy to be a guest on our show, but he'll have to get in touch. He'll need to put us in touch with his people to discuss his fee. But what I'm getting at is this client of ours, his wife transferred the money because he was a busy man. On the basis of this email, she made mention, I've done that job for Champion Bay. I've transferred the money. This was on a weekend. And he went, you did what? Where'd you get that from? Oh, I got an email. He said, hang on, they don't send email with account details. You've got to be really, really, really careful. And a lot of settlement agents, and I know I spoke to our solicitor because he sent us some details about his trust account. I said, not for me to tell you guys, but I'm surprised you're sending account details in an email, because that's what they call phishing. So they interrupt your email, they get everything and they've got these systems, whatever they may be, and they pick up and away they go. So if you're buying property or you're selling property and you're dealing with a settlement agent or your real estate agent or a solicitor or whoever it may be, you've got to be so, so careful. And if you've got any doubt, then ring your settlement agent or ring your real estate agent or ring your solicitor, because when it goes, it can go and you've got great difficulties. You see that article, I think you showed me the video, and it was on a current affair a year or two ago. And, people got caught out, and it's sad and it's unfortunate, but it's something you need to be very, very conscious of.
Yeah, mate, I don't think that topic could be spoken about enough, whether it's in my area in property management and we're talking to owners and tenants. It is such a vicious, ugly topic. And I think that, even if networks are protected or are secure, I don't think that that's even 100% secure. Like it's such a vicious world out there. And, we've got instructions with our property managers that, we can have owners that would ring up and they've changed banks. So they'll ring up and give us some new details, but we don't really know who they are on the phone. And then it's like, well, do they email us? And it's like, well, do we know the emails come from them? So it creates challenges day to day, similar to what it does for you guys. And all it does, like these guys that are out there doing the phishing thing, they're just waiting for the opening. And I know myself, not so much in a business context, but just day-to-day stuff. I just get on and do what I need to do, jump on, check my bank and see if this money's come in or I pay that bill. And all it takes is one little slip up, and, human behavior is often pretty predictable. So, it's the awareness to it, I think, is it just needs to be repeated and repeated, because once you get burnt, and I haven't, but I know so many people that have, so it's really just a matter of time until be very sure of this. You don't have to be some dummy for that to occur. Be very, very clear on it. You just got to be diligent. You've got to be aware. You've got to be conscious. And even doing those things, it can still happen. You hear it all the time. You hear of the scenarios, but all we're saying is an opportunity. And again, we'll get that topic and get someone in with regard to cybercrime, because it's a topic in itself that's worthwhile discussing. And certainly when it comes to property, you see it all the time. Look at those scenarios that happened a few years ago now, which changed the way we conducted business for real estate and conveyancing, when someone sold someone's house while they're away overseas. You think, how could that possibly happen? But it did. And there's been several attempts since, but the systems have been put in place to be a lot more diligent, and obviously that's where ID and things of that come into play. But they will change as quickly as we change. So you've just got to be diligent. A quick question. One thing that really intrigues me, which I've been, I myself have sort of been on the bandwagon about this, and it was interesting to note.
that Rewa posted. There was an article in the paper. Slipped my mind at the moment. Who's the president of Rewa at the present time?
Damien Collins.
Yep, that's it, Damien.
Yeah.
And Damien wrote an article with regard to the waiving of stamp duty, which seriously is well, you would really, really, really like to see that. I think there's a plus for that. But what are your thoughts with regard to that? I mean, I don't see it happening in a hurry, but do you ever see that happening?
Yeah. Well, with regard to waiving, maybe that's a big ask. Look, and I think just in terms of Damien Collins, Rewa's been lobbying for this for a long time, and the current president is doing an outstanding job, and will keep going, I'm sure. But you know, waiving it, maybe not, because it's just too much of an easy tax, or rather an easy revenue stream for the government. And obviously the government needs to earn revenue in order to function. But some sort of a more balanced approach to how stamp duty is calculated, or some sort of a reduction somewhere, because it's such a roadblock to otherwise a pretty stimulated real estate market. And you just never see anything for it whatsoever. It's just absolute dead money. So some sort of contribution towards insurance, some sort of contribution towards a mortgage or a reduction. So, you know, there's got to be some sort of a change to it. There's been obviously some stimulation or some incentive applied for apartment sales and 75% reduction in stamp duty and so forth. And that's all heading in the right direction. But by and large, we need stamp duty reform massively.
I've got an idea.
Do you?
I've got an idea. When you say they can't do anything with that money, AICWA, and certainly again something that I'm also sort of been pushing. We had Dion, our CEO from AIC, the Australian Institute of Conveyancing in WA, and they put a proposal getting back to baby boomers. It's connected really, baby boom, whereby grandma or grandpa or grandma and grandpa, whatever the case may be, mum and dad want to downsize, like we've been talking about baby boomers, and wanting to go to an apartment so they can lock up and go away, perhaps at some point. But the situation being is, why not have a concession for a particular age group who are downsizing? Why not do that situation? You know, we talk about incentives for building, but let's create some incentives. And remembering too, it's been well publicised and documented over a period of time that baby boomers were going to be a huge demand on the social security system. Maybe if you've got your family home, and maybe if you're going to sell your family home and downsize, and therefore because stamp duty can be a significant amount of money, as we all know, as we both know, if we can downsize, we've already got a real estate fee, then we've got a stamp duty. If that stamp duty can be a concessional duty or waived in some way, shape or form, then all of a sudden that might allow me to downsize, and it may also give me some money in the kitty back here, which then reduces my reliance on Social Security, which then reduces, I think I could be a politician, because it then would reduce...
I was going to say, don't waste all your talent doing that, mate. But what you should do, though, is pick up the phone if you haven't already, because this is an outstanding idea. It's a really, really good, logical. It's a fantastic idea that it's worth your while picking up the phone and having a chat to someone like Damien Collins, because Rewa has, as I said, they've been very active in lobbying the state government for a change here, and a phone call to Damien, chatting through your idea. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you, and it might be something that hasn't yet been thrown in the ring. So don't waste the idea that you've got, because it's fantastic.
It's not completely my idea, just quietly. I would suggest that Dion, I think Dion are probably each other being, but what I effect, not just but a flow-on effect, make a difference for a person's lifestyle in their age period. So, but just a little point. But just I thought I'd. Hey, we see what happens when the two of you get together. We just get. But one of the things that's really, really interesting, I find it intriguing, and we might follow it up. In fact, we've now got another topic. We'll see if they can come on as guests. But did you see there was a little article about Mortgage Mates app where it pairs WA solo first property buyers? Did you see that?
Mate, I haven't heard of it. Didn't see it. Enlighten me. Tell me more.
This is how it reads. Perth's things are turned into the equivalent of Tinder, right? Equivalent of Tinder for home buyers. They attempt to enter a market they have not felt priced out of, according to the co-founders of Mortgage Mates, it's called. So Daisy Ashworth and Jess Vesley, to find out who they are and see if we can touch base with them and maybe have a chat to them, said interest in their Perth mortgage sharing platform. So it's a Perth-based thing. Started to take off during the coronavirus pandemic, as many young adults were faced with new financial hurdles. The property market was already a really challenging one, especially for the younger demographic for home buyers. So COVID has allowed young people's income and the ability to save a decent deposit. So Mortgage Mates is designed to match potential home buyers with another which assesses the user's interest in spending cap. And if both parties like each other, they can start discussing their options. Now, I can see some pluses and minuses, but that's really intriguing.
So did you say at the very start of that, it puts people in touch with, these potential opportunities that otherwise they didn't think they were good enough or
Yep.
punching above their weight?
Yep.
And so you're saying that's what Tinder does?
Well, what they've referred to it is an analogy. They use Tinder. They've called it it's the home buyer version of Tinder. So It's sort of introduce partners. You could see. Maybe it's my age coming into it, but you could see some risk factors there as well, couldn't you?
Oh yeah. But look, I love hearing about new ideas like that, and there's the technology side, but then there's the concept as well. And look, I think you should put the call out, and if you can get those guys on, that'd be a great conversation to have with them.
So you do the heavy lifting. Is that the plan?
Yes, please. Can you do that, because I have to go?
No, I know you're busy, but what I hear, there's been, over the past few months, so with the COVID issue, there's been a spike retail and hospitality workers in particular signing up who had aspirations but were faced with reduced wages or job security. Very, very interesting, I reckon. So I think that's you've got to follow up on. Hey, what do you?
Yeah, sounds good to me, mate. Absolutely.
Good question. Hey, listen, we're now something like 52 minutes. It's been an absolute. That was our first episode together as such, as co-hosts.
Yes.
But I got a quick question with you. This week was not only was it big with property, but it was also big in the lotto. 50 million to the lady who didn't even know she'd won it until her friends rang and said, "You know that lotto kiosk that we went to while we were on a holiday? You bought a ticket from there." And she said, "Oh, did I?" So she goes and checks the ticket and she's won 50 million. And then I think apparently. And then there was someone else who won 80 million. The question is, if you won 50 million or you won 80 million, what would your plan be?
My plan would be to do nothing. No, I would do nothing for 12 months, maybe 6 months, but probably 12 months. I'd just keep doing what I had planned on doing for life for the next 12 months with work and family and all that, and not make any changes to it. Then in 6 months or in 12 months' time, work out what's going to be a good use of that money for me and the family and the people that I know.
Would you like me to answer?
What would you do?
I actually discussed this with my wife before the draw occurred, and I said, be prepared. I'd like to discuss this with you. So I did actually discuss it with her. But my thinking was, I said, that's an obscene amount of money, and if I won that sort of money, it would be of some concern. But the first thing that I was planning to do, and my wife agreed with me, I would control it, but I would identify. No, I would identify specifically. I'm serious about this. And I said to Jude, and she said, you generally would do that. And I said, yeah, I would seriously identify maybe 10 people, maybe a dozen people, depending on what the situation was, who've gone through some really tough times when it comes to that bushfires. And I would administer it. I wouldn't go to any charity. It wouldn't be going to any person to manage it. I would manage it, but I'd identify and specifically go and see the people that really needed some money to get their life back on track.
No, that's very noble of you, and super good course. One good bit that I caught on the news earlier is that you wouldn't need any of that money to support Kanye West's running for the US presidency, because he actually withdrew his hat in the ring today, I think it was, which certainly that's a step in the right direction for America.
Right. Okay. Mate, we're going to wind up. For those people that have had enough of the two of us, it's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to doing it again next week. Property Avenue WA is your avenue to property in WA. It's a range of topics. It's not just about real estate. It's not just about selling. It's not just about buying. But if you've got questions in the future, or if you want to drop us a line during the week, you can get our website. We're in the process of doing some work on it, but we'll also have a podcast. So what we do, if you don't want to look at our two faces, or you're driving somewhere and you want to listen to what we have to say, then we're going to go one step further and create a podcast with the viewing. But been a pleasure. Look forward to doing it again next week, and have a great week. Please take care. And if you're in Victoria, New South Wales, we're happy if you stay there and just look after yourselves. Take care.
Stay safe.
Mate.